Hey everyone, we'll give it a few seconds because although it tells us we're live, there's always a delay by the time it reaches LinkedIn, YouTube, and the internet in general, because I haven't quite fixed that yet. Despite the rise of AI, we still have to wait a few seconds. So I think I've rambled enough just to make sure that we are there. If you are watching and you can see us and hear us, please just pop that in the comments so we know that we're not talking to ourselves, although it wouldn't be the first time. Right. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today we're talking about LinkedIn, but really the new rules of LinkedIn and how it's changed. And to do that, I'm joined by the absolutely wonderful Janine Owen. She'll give me a fire later for that. Janine, would you mind introducing yourself to the audience for those that don't know you?
Hi everyone, I'm Janine Owen. I have been a recruitment marketer for too long to talk about, in honesty, and I now run my own consultancy, JK & Co.
Amazing. And Janine is massively underselling herself there, which I have a go at her for all the time. She's a legend when it comes to recruitment marketing, and there is nobody else I would trust more with how to win on LinkedIn, right? And for those who don't know me, I'm Darren, the CEO and co-founder of Pager. I've been in recruitment for nearly 20 years now, which I know what you're thinking. I look far too young for that.
You do.
Oh, thank you. But I built my business based on LinkedIn because when I quit my job as a techie, the idea of making cold calls scared me. So I realized I had to learn marketing pretty quickly. And that was 8 years ago now. So what I'm going to share today is 8 years of all of my learnings, etc. So what I want to talk about today is in those 8 years, LinkedIn has changed, I want to say dramatically. It's gone through lots of algorithm changes, right? It feels like there's a new playbook every single 6 months, right? But what's always been a common theme is that good content will always be good content.
Yeah.
Right now, there's obviously the introduction of boosting posts, and that's changed the distribution model. And, it doesn't always mean now that the size of your audience is the people you're going to reach. But if we just stick to that theme of good content, because that's been the remaining theme for the last 8 years, every single time I know it, well, good content's good content. My first question to you is, well, what does good content actually mean?
That's a big question, and one that's beyond LinkedIn, isn't it? Let's be honest. But yeah. I think there's a huge difference now, talking in 2026, between good content and something you copy and paste out of ChatGPT or one of your relevant LLMs. Those tools are brilliant to help you not start with a blank page, maybe, or to help you refine your message depending on how you work best. But just simply copy and pasting is not the way forward. And we're still in a world, even now with all of the AI support, where great content is at a low level. So I think it's sub 1% people are posting regular quality relevant content to their audiences. And relevant is the key word. Who are you trying to talk to and what are you trying to say? LinkedIn has a sales element to it. Of course it does. We all accept that. But it should also be about what's relevant to your audience. How can I show that I can add value, etc. So the relevance of your content, as well as adding a level of personality. Who are you? Why do you take that view? As well as adding your sort of business tone if you're within a business. All those things are important, but you need to bring your experience, your opinions, and your personality now more than ever.
And you mentioned personality, and I just want to dig into that a little bit more, because I speak to recruiters all day, every day, that are looking to do more on LinkedIn, and they're looking at Pager. And I love AI, right? I'm a big fan, but it is that first draft of a post, not the final thing. But you mentioned personality, and often when I say that to people, they go, I don't really want to post pictures of my cat, my dog, my kids, right? That's not what you mean by.
If I had a penny for every time I say to someone, you don't need to post what you had for breakfast, I'd be a very rich woman. Honestly, no, of course it doesn't. But it does. Your personality is part of you, right? What you do and who you're trying to talk to, those aren't unique particularly, but what you do personally, your personality and who you're talking to and bringing your personality, that's your unique bit. So you have to be able to bring a bit of the personal to it. And that's why the term personal branding, which I think we've almost moved away from, but that's why that personal is in there, because it is about you as well as what you do and the audience that you're trying to reach from a work context.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that people buy from people, right? That's always the saying. Even we've got different industries, right? I'll speak to like legal recruiters, like, oh no, I couldn't possibly post that. But then I think it's important to remember the buyer at the end of your, whether it's recruitment, software, whatever it is you sell, They are a human being, and they also
are.
They also do everything that you do as well. We all get drunk. We all make mistakes. We do all of these things. I'm not saying to post
it's a trust element, isn't it? We're in what's been deemed a trust recession, partly because of AI to a certain extent. But that bit of your person to person, people buy from people, that's the best people come to trust. So if you are expecting someone to come and purchase, something from you, and recruitment, let's be fair, isn't a cheap service that we're offering, you have to bring that trust involved, and that involves, being a person on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be a cheap service anyway. We don't want.
No, definitely not. No, it shouldn't be. But the more it's going to cost someone, the more trust they need to purchase, right? That's the bit.
Yeah, the thing that I always resonated with most was that somebody said to me, they used to teach like 7 touch points for someone to trust you to do business with you. But in the digital world, it's more like 33, something like crazy.
Yeah, you can find different numbers, right? But yeah, absolutely. It's certainly over 25 these days. So,
and a touch point can be as simple as a comment on LinkedIn, a like. It can be all those, they all add up, right?
It can be an impression, right? Which, I'm sure we'll come to what stats are you looking at, but it can be as simple as reading it. Like a lot of people that I work with will come to me and go, I've seen your posts on LinkedIn. Not once have they commented, liked, been anywhere near what I can see from a metric, but actually you're still there and you're still being seen.
Yeah, and that is the craziest thing that happens to me. Like I don't know why I'm sharing this story, a bit TMI, but I was in Center Parcs in the shower, I had trunks on, and this guy comes up and goes, Darren, I just want to say hello, I've seen your LinkedIn stuff, and he was a recruiter, he's now a customer, but he'd never commented, never interacted at all. But my first, in-person interaction was in the Center Parcs showers.
In the shower, that would genuinely be my worst nightmare, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's up there with my favorite deal ever. It really is. You spoke a little bit about audience there, right? And one of the big shifts that I've noticed in my own audience as well is that actually it's about quality over quantity these days. It used to be like a bragging rights if you had 30,000 connections, and I personally removed around 10,000 connections from my LinkedIn, and I've seen my reach go up, not down. So I just want to dig into that. When you say build the right audience, what do you actually mean by that?
Who are you trying to talk to? It comes back to, if you're a business, what do we do? Who do we do it for? And any of your sort of social media elements, either as a person and an individual consultant, or as a business owner, or within a business, that you need to have those, what I would call an ICP, but in marketing speak, but you're sort of the person or the people that you're trying to speak to really clear in your mind. You will bring in others, but if you can be as narrow as you can think of, even down to the individual person, right? Who am I trying to talk to with this message? The stronger that message will become, because what you want someone to go is, that's me. I feel that pain.
So if we flip that around for a recruiter, let's say I specialize in IT recruitment in banking. Who would you recommend I actually connect to as part of building my network?
That prospect client in your head. Think through that one client, that one CTO that you really want to be talking to, that you can help find people for the new project that they're working on, because that's your market, and talk to them. Talk to that pain point, this new project, it's slowing down, the people element, the talent element, all of those things. Talk to that pain point, because that's what will help you then, as I say, bring in other people that are also struggling with that same pain point, but it helps you narrow down into, right, I'm just going to talk to Bob. That's what I'm doing. I'm just focusing on Bob. What is he struggling with? What can I help with? What can my posts consist of for a period? What opinions do I want to express that I know Bob will go, oh yeah, I feel that one. And as narrow as you can get, I think the stronger your sort of content becomes.
I think I've probably taken it to an extreme. So when I removed the 10,000 people from my connection list, I removed old school friends, family members, etc. Because my theory is that LinkedIn tests a post before it goes to more people. They take
certainly.
So you need to make sure that test is as good as it can be. Do you think part of the big thing I see at the moment is every single time I do a post on LinkedIn, it says, do you want to boost it? Do you want to pay LinkedIn some money? What have you seen that impact be, that they are trying to monetize the personal newsfeed now?
Yeah, everybody's seen it, right? Everybody's reach has dropped and becomes quite a bit more sporadic, I think, a bit more up, a bit more down. And there's no doubt that they're trying to force the commercialization of it. And I, if you run some tests on it, you can spend fairly low levels on it. It does improve your reach, but again, it's going to come back to, are you talking to the right audience? Does your profile match that audience, and the relevance of the posts that you're trying to do? All of those things will help you impact the boost. So if you just boost it and your profile, if you're a recruiter in law, for example, but in the back, in your past, you've also been a recruiter in accountancy, and your profile still talks about accountancy, still has testimonials from accountancy people, all of those things, and then you start to talk about law, you can boost that post all you like. It's still not going to hit the right people all the time, because LinkedIn will impact what's on your profile versus what you're talking about, and that relevancy score drops.
One of the big things I changed as well, which has come back to me, is my industry on LinkedIn. So I didn't. Yeah. When you set up your profile to start with, it just asks you what industry, and I'm a techie, so I chose IT and services. Right. So LinkedIn actually as a signal that I want to reach people in IT and services. When I don't, I want to reach people in staffing and recruiting. So I've now changed my industry. So if there are any recruiters watching, just make sure your industry on LinkedIn is actually set to what you're trying to reach as well.
100%. That's a huge tip that people miss. A lot of recruiters are just sat in staffing and recruiting, which, unless you're rec to rec, you really shouldn't be.
No, it's crazy, isn't it? And this wasn't on the agenda, but it's just come to me as a question, because while I've got you, I'm going to pick your brains. Okay. I was once at an event in LinkedIn's offices, right? And they were talking about pay-per-click and how to reach more people. And then one of the questions at the end, it made the room go silent, actually, because the question was, out of everybody here, I think there's about 30 recruit marketers, how many of you have got pay-per-click budgets? And I think 2 hands went up. So if you think now LinkedIn is becoming more pay-to-play, right? It is. You have to have some budget. Yeah. If you were a marketer inside a recruitment business, how would you actually get budget for that from your boss, the CEO, etc.?
Yeah, it's hard, right? And the budgets can't be particularly low, because LinkedIn advertising isn't something you can switch on and switch off and expect a result in a couple of weeks. Now, boosting posts is slightly different to that, boosting individual posts, I will say. But if you're talking about sort of company level promotion and pay-per-click, that is a longer term play. So you need to be prepared to have a bigger budget. My advice is, it's not dissimilar, actually. And I really believe that any of these things, whether you're talking about just what your consultants are posting or a bigger advertising campaign, it needs to be part of a bigger strategy. You need to know what you're trying to achieve, know your audience, test that audience. Don't just go all in with a massive budget and expect it to really work. LinkedIn themselves will tell you have to warm up the audience. There has to be regular content in advance of you putting a campaign live. And then, test. Understand that a test can't be 2 weeks long, but, set realistic budgets to be able to test and pilot. And then what you'll probably find is your audience goes narrower over time. So yes, it might cost you a bit more per click, but you're getting a better result overall. You're getting a better conversion rate.
And just because historically, I don't think that on the P&L of a recruitment company has been LinkedIn paid spend.
I wouldn't put it first, Darren. I would never. Somebody asked me about SEO spend, pay-per-click on Google as well the other day, similar things. Yes, if you've got endless pots of budget, it has its place, but I certainly wouldn't have it low on the list. Depending on what level of budgets you're talking about and what you're trying to achieve, I wouldn't have it as priorities number 1 and 2.
So would you prioritize more getting your recruiters to produce organic content, the leadership team to start posting?
Yeah, I'd be having a look at your funnel, right? What are you trying to achieve? Have you got tons of people that are aware of your business and you're trying to engage with them? What does that mean? What are the techniques, including social media, but not exclusively social media, that you're going to be using to engage people as part of the funnel? If you've got a ton of people that are already towards the bottom of your funnel, but they're not quite converting, what is the problem there, and how can we fix that? And different techniques for different levels. If you're a new start or you're going into a new audience as a brand, you need to be at the top of the funnel, right? You need to stay there, and you need to absolutely maximize bringing people into your world right at the top of the funnel at the start. So I think it depends what you're trying to achieve and where you are as a business, and your social media or your LinkedIn strategy in this case should sit, within that funnel, but it should not be exclusively that. And that's I fear that we've almost gone into a world where it's like, oh, LinkedIn, if you just regularly post on LinkedIn, Mr. CEO founder, you'll get tons of inbound and it'll be done. And LinkedIn isn't working like that in the same way that it was working when you started, for example.
Yeah, it's definitely changed, and it's interesting because I was speaking to someone the other day. I won't name them in case they're watching and they don't want me to name them. But they've just launched a new website, right? And they've invested heavily in this website, and it looks absolutely stunning. And my first question to them was, "That's fantastic! You're at the start of the journey." And they almost looked shocked because they thought that was the end of the journey, right? The website was the end. I was like, "No, that's the start, right? You've now got this fantastic asset. What's your plan to get traffic to it?" And we worked about
how are you getting people there,
drive all that traffic back, etc. But it was almost a bit of a shock horror to them when they realized the website was the start, not the end. And so if you're thinking about that wider strategy, the website comes first. Right? You have to have a central place. But
you need it doesn't need to be all singing, all dancing from the get-go, but you need somewhere for people to go and find you, don't you? So it is really key, and getting it right. Again, it's the same thing where it's not as quick as I'm just going to throw up a web page or whatever. Do you want your jobs on there? Is that appropriate? Are you focusing it on finding more clients, or are you focusing it on getting more candidates to apply to jobs? All of those sorts of questions need to go into your thinking around, what do I need a website to do? And it should be so much more than a logo and a banner statement.
Yeah, it should be. And please avoid the stock photos if you can. You mentioned SEO a second ago, right? About SEO, you were asked about that. And what's interesting is that it feels like the world's almost moving on from SEO, just as the recruitment industry is now talking about it. Because the big thing I always hear is AEO, or I don't even know what the right acronym is anymore. But we're talking about AI discovery, right? Being discovered in ChatGPT, Claude, etc. And from all of my research, posting on the likes of LinkedIn, Reddit, Twitter, etc. X, sorry, I can't call it Twitter anymore. All of these networks play a part because they're discoverable by AI, and they can use it to train their models, etc. Are you finding clients talking to you about that as well, or is it a bit premature for that?
A few, mainly where they've spoken to someone who's found them through a ChatGPT or something, and they're like, wow, okay, how do we get more of that? As has been the case with SEO, how do we be number one on Google, right? It's the same thing. And as you say, sometimes comes a bit behind the rest of the world. I think to a certain extent, and there are huge technicalities in this in which I'm not an expert, but it comes back to the same point. Your content should be feeding the machine overall, and that's always been true. That hasn't changed. The machine changes, but your relevant content, quality content, now feeds a slightly different machine than it did before. But you don't want to just ignore Google all of a sudden, because that still has its relevance, enormously so. And the other bit of that now is to make sure, in a way that we used to feed the Google machine with any content, right? A blog or whatever. Now you need to think about whose is that content. So it needs to be authored. It needs to be dated and relevant for LLMs. So it's not a huge change in strategy, but it's like, you need to take certain elements more into account than you did before.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to what you said right at the start. Decide good content. What does good content look like? What's your strategy? Who are you talking to?
That's not new. Right,
no, it's not.
That's the bit. The algorithms changed on LinkedIn. AI, has impacted the way that people find and ask for recommendations or find out information about a business. So they're not always going to come to your website now. That those questions can be answered elsewhere. But relevant content is still going to help you drive that machine.
I think what is new though is how you measure it, right? Because for so many years, people said to me, "Oh, I've got 1,000 likes." I'm like, okay, how much money did you make from those 1,000 likes, etc. Right? And now that LinkedIn's reach is down, unless you boost, or you have a quality network, or you have a really good quality post, what I'm finding is I have to remind myself that I'm posting more than just for likes. I'm posting because when someone views my profile, I do look at as an expert. When AI is reading my profile, again, it's knowing that I'm an expert and I'm an authority within that space. So yeah. I guess the question is, what would you measure if you wanted to say, right, we're going to have a LinkedIn strategy? What would you be measuring as to success in 2 months' time?
So I'm a big believer that you shouldn't measure really. Like, you should have a LinkedIn strategy, absolutely. But what's your objective with that in the first place? So do you want, and it depends on the size of business to a certain extent and what you're trying to achieve, but if you want to get more meetings, right? You know, who's your focus for more meetings within the business, and how do we go about doing that? And it will be partly content, it'll be partly your direct messaging, your emails and things that you're sending, all of those sorts of elements. And you're measuring how many more meetings are we getting, right? So because that's your objective with it. Again, if you come back to, if you're top of the funnel and you want more eyeballs, then measure the eyeballs, right? How many people am I just getting in the top of the funnel at this point? Engagement is largely irrelevant. I just want more people seeing my stuff. So that's a different piece. And then, you know, so it depends what you're trying to achieve as to exactly what you're measuring, because I don't think you should just go, oh, let's have a LinkedIn strategy because we need one. You know, it should be part of your overall marketing strategy. And within that, anybody that's seen me talk about marketing strategy before, you know, each of your objectives within that will have its own measurable, and LinkedIn should be a big part of that, probably multiple pillars across that strategy. But it shouldn't just be sat there on its own. Just having a LinkedIn strategy won't grow your business.
Okay, and so I'm just thinking as a business owner now, right? I'm sitting here, maybe I'm a 10-person recruitment business, right? And it's one of my favorite questions to ask everybody that I speak to. If you had, actually, let's make it 5, make your life easier. It's much easier when it's 5. If you had 5 people in a recruitment business, what would they be doing? Would they all be 360 recruiters?
Yes, changing, isn't it? That my personal belief, and it does vary a little bit by market, but my personal belief is that 360 is a tough model. You know, we think if you look more at a sort of 290, someone can be resourcing for you in this world and finding the right people to be talking to, I feel. But there are businesses where, you know, the candidates are there. In every recruitment business, the candidate is the product, right? To use a really horrible term about people, but it is that sort of product on shelf. But for some people and for some niches, you find a candidate, you know, you're absolutely going to place them. In those circumstances, that's where 360 works, I think, because you're so in control of your very niche market. You know everybody in it. You find someone who's prepared to move, and that's your fee, almost guaranteed. You know, with a number of businesses. I think the flip of that is a lot of recruiters are still job central, aren't they? You know, they're still, you go out, find a job, and then go and find the person. That's not always the best model, but that's where I think 360 becomes too much, because for you to really know your clients incredibly well and not to be just like, do you need a job? Do you need a person? Do you need a person? Have you got a job? Have you got a job? To know your clients incredibly well, you need to be out there meeting them. You need to be in networks with them. You need to be talking to them, understanding their pain points. And then to be able to know your market incredibly well on the candidate side as well does become more challenging for someone when you look at all of the other bits that come with recruitment. It's not as simple as just this bit and this bit. Is there the CRMs to be updated? There's invoices to be raised. There's all of the other bit that comes with being a recruiter. And that's when sometimes I think, and I mean resources not as like the cheap alternative. I mean people who are incredibly brilliant at diving in and finding the right people and building a level of engagement with them. I don't mean that as like the, you know, the short end of the stick, if you like.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a reason I asked, and it is to do with LinkedIn, because when I speak to people and we say, what do you want to be known for? It's really tough when you're a 360 recruiter, because actually you need to talk to the audiences. It's really tough to actually go, actually, I'm going to prioritize this audience today, build that up, and oh no, I now need the candidates, I'm going to prioritize this one. So it's, where would you start as a 360 recruiter when it comes to who do you want to speak to?
That is a difficult question to answer. I think you do have to have a slightly wider strategy. Then you've got to think about, from a content perspective, who am I talking to? So if you think about the broad pillars being who, you know, what do I do? Well, I recruit, but what's within that? Okay, well, I find brilliant, let's just take solicitors for a minute. You know, I find great family solicitors for clients within this location. So I want to be able to talk to, when you get to your audience, who do I do it for? I want to be able to talk to family lawyers, family paralegals, etc. But I also want to be able to talk to partners who are recruiting for these HR and talent within legal firms. And you've then got to almost break down your content to is, right, what are all these audiences going to want to hear about? What are their pain points? And it becomes a bit more complicated, but you can matrix to a certain extent what you're trying to say.
Yeah, my biggest view is pick one. It's really hard, right?
But it is difficult. You can be but you end up being too generalist, I think, if you just end up with legal. But if you're talking, you know, family law, you're going to appeal to enough people, I feel. And then, you know, it's the HR talent bit in a lot of, you know, recruiters that I work with that trips you up sometimes, because they're not necessarily family law in this example specialists, they're HR talent specialists. So how do you wrap those up in terms of, but I need to be in with that audience as well, and maybe that's an off LinkedIn piece. You know, maybe that's the bit where you deliver them something, you know, get them to an event, etc., etc.
And I think that's a really important point, that the goal of your LinkedIn should be to actually have an offline conversation with them. You know, whether that's a phone call, whether that's an event, you know, it shouldn't be to, you know, we're not in transactional recruitment, hopefully not, right? And I think that should be one of your objectives. One other question for you, and I think we've got some time for this, is I speak to lots of people, and there's lots of, every other ad that I seem to see on LinkedIn is, you don't need to pay for LinkedIn Sales Nav. You don't need to pay for LinkedIn Recruiter. If you go with me, I'll make sure you get X amount of leads, blah, 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 blah. And I'll be honest, and I'm not sure if I can swear, but it's all bollocks. I think you need to mix the two. But what's your view on how to maximize a paid LinkedIn subscription, or when do you need one versus when you don't?
You need to, if you're going to maximize a paid LinkedIn subscription, you need to use it as well as you can. You need to know the product as well as you can, and that is really important, because it like the algorithm changes quite a bit, and they bring in updates and things, and people that have used it before come in and they're like, well, I've just always used it for this bit. So if you're only using it to advertise jobs, you know, and there are people out there that are just like, well, if I advertise enough, then I'll get the candidates, and that's how I'll do it. If you're only using it to use InMails, you're only using a fraction of the tool, right? So like any tech, you understand the product and understand what value it can help you drive. LinkedIn are really good at that as well. I will give them credit where it's due. They're really good at supporting that sort of learning curve, and for people to get to be driving the Ferrari instead of driving it like it's a clapped out Mini. You know, and that is really important to maximize it. These are not cheap licenses now, right? Whichever one you're using.
Yeah.
And especially if you're using a recruiter license. So maximization is key, and it shouldn't just be another spray and pray, or another just let me just get 100 emails out and I'll see what comes back to me. You know, you should take pride as a recruiter on your response rates to emails. You should take pride on getting brilliant candidates out of great job adverts on there. You should take pride out of your content and driving eyeballs to it. And I think that's the route to a better success rate overall. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it does. It does. One question for you is, a lot of the stats that I see show that posting on LinkedIn, building your personal brand, whatever you want to call it these days, does increase your email response rate. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, because it's important to LinkedIn. That's why it is, because that's how they build it. So same with your company page, right? So if you get more eyeballs on your company page, which we all know is an absolute, I was going to say a word then, which I'm not going to say on LinkedIn, but it's an absolute pain in the backside. Then your email response will go up, which is insane, because I don't want to focus on getting people to my company page. But it's just a factor, because LinkedIn want to sell more company pages, right? So practically speaking, it will help your emails, and that's your route as a marketer, speaking as a marketer for a minute, into the recruiters who frankly most of the time don't care, and a bit like, well, why do I need to post on LinkedIn? Or like we've said, I don't want to post my breakfast. But okay, you'll get better response rate to your emails. And that, let's be honest, is what most recruiters out there focus on, the email bit of LinkedIn. That's a bit of an error in my view. But if you can argue that the more posting that you do and the better quality content that you do means the better response rates you'll get into your emails, so therefore more placements, more money, etc., that's when it starts to work. So, and the other bit is take it off them. The other bit is take it off them. If it's not working well, you know, as a business owner, and I've been there for a lot of years, just remove it. You know, people shouldn't have licenses that they are playing with. You shouldn't be paying a fortune, because there are other routes to market.
We've only got a little bit of time left, but I've just remembered one last thing I wanted to ask you, and it's one of my bugbears when I speak to people around, you know, page or building your personal brand, etc. And the business owner sometimes, not all of them, but sometimes says, well, if I do that, then they're going to leave and take the network with them.
Oh my God.
Do you have that
Surely
as well?
that's stopped. Surely that has stopped. Like that has been a problem almost for as long as I've been employed, I think, which is now a long time. Yeah, that's just short-sighted. You know, in a world of AI, you know, it's been short-sighted for 15 years at least, but now it's the same as I don't want to post that job ad. I don't want to put all of those details in because people will know who my client is. And you're getting really great candidates for that client who's going to be super loyal to you because you're filling their bloody roles. It's the same thing. You know, people already know who you're working with. People already know who's in your business and who does well. It shouldn't be something that you're trying to hide. And if you're a recruiter, I genuinely don't know that it's still happening as much as it used to be. But if you are a recruiter sat there wanting to build a personal brand and your business is saying, no, you can't do that because you might end up leaving, you're in the wrong place.
Absolutely.
Sorry, that's a bit blunt, but it's true.
No, I love it. It's the same rant I do. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't being too ranty. It sounds like we're all right.
Surely it's not still happening.
Oh, it is. Believe me, it is. Right. So takeaways for people based on everything you've gone through is decide what they want to be known for. I think that's number one.
100%. What do you do and who do you do it for? Like, get specific on that.
Get very specific. Identify the audience they actually need to reach and build a smaller, relevant network. Yeah. And then create content. Create content for that network. Use organic engagement to identify what resonates. And if you're lucky enough to have a paid budget, yes, you can boost it, but you can absolutely win on LinkedIn with organic, I think is the takeaway.
Yeah. And give it a bit of time. You know, don't too many people start posting on LinkedIn and then, you know, 3 weeks in, I've posted it 12 times across 3 weeks and nothing's happened. You have to give it time. And really, and you know, educate yourself. There are people you can follow to help you understand how LinkedIn works, what's going to work best for your market. Test and try, and yeah, absolutely, give it a bit of time.
Amazing. Right, we will wrap it up there. For anyone that is looking to get their recruiters post on LinkedIn, need technology to help them, want to put KPIs in place, please visit paiger.co. That's paiger.co because I bought a stupid domain name. Janine, how can people get in touch with you and what can you help them with?
Get in touch with me on LinkedIn because I am there and following my own advice, thankfully, hopefully posting relevant content. And you can find me on there for anything marketing strategy, marketing proposition, or how to get your recruiters posting on LinkedIn.
And Janine is incredible. So thank you very much for your time. We'll press end stream. If anyone's got any questions afterwards, feel free to pop us a message. We're both workaholics, a day or night. I'm sure we'll come back to you.
Yeah, pretty much. Thank you.